back to the Little Talk Show. I'm your host, Will Begley, and let's get started. Before we get started this week, I would like to start off with a verse. This verse is Joshua 1:9, King James Version, which says, "Have not I commanded thee, be strong and good courage, be not afraid, neither be thou dismayed. The Lord thy God is with thee, whithersoever thou goest." This means that you should be bold in faith, be courageous in your actions, and have a strong walk with God. Worship God all the time, no matter who is around or what is happening in your life. Trusting in God means you do not have to fear, because no matter what you face, God is with you. Now, let's get into the political world. This week I had the privilege to interview Karen Kelly. Karen is one of my favorite political operatives. She currently serves as Chief of Staff for Congressman Hal Rogers, and let's play the interview. Hello, I'm here with Karen Kelly, Chief of Staff for Congressman Hal Rogers, and how are you today?
I'm great. Any day you're in Hazard, Kentucky instead of Washington, D.C. is a wonderful day. So It's great to be here with you, Will.
Did you drive safe?
I did, absolutely. And it's a little cold outside, but before we know it, it'll be springtime, and the birds will be flying and the bees will be buzzing, and we'll be back to beautiful springtime in Kentucky.
Can't wait for that. So I'm going to ask our first question. When did you start working for Congressman Rogers?
He hired me in December of 1994. Sandy Runyon in the Pikeville office offered me the job, and she took me over to meet Hal during their Christmas dinner. And I filled in for her between Christmas and New Year's, and really got started on the job January 2nd or 3rd, whatever that was, in January of 95. So it's been a day or two.
Since Bill Clinton.
Exactly.
What previous roles have you held?
You mean with the congressman or before I went to work for him?
Before and during.
Well, before I went to work for Congressman Rogers, I worked for an orthodontist in Pikeville. I worked for Tom Hartsock, who is a wonderful human being. I worked at a law firm called Pruitt in Bourbon, and Mike taught me a lot working at the law firm. But Sandy called, Sandy Runyon, and said, "We got a job over here at the congressman's office. It pays $12,000 a year, but it had health insurance." So it was my first job with health insurance. I was so excited. And I was young. My daughter was 3 months old. She was just a baby. So it opened up a world of opportunities to me that I, quite frankly, didn't know existed.
Well, that's very, very good. And so it's good to have health insurance. So.
Yeah. Well, and I started there. And I started answering phones and doing casework, helping people with their Black lung benefits, helping people who had problems with the federal government. Really, I was an ear. I was at the front desk. So anybody that came in, I tried to get to know them and how we could serve them and be as much help as we could. And I remember the congressman, when he hired me, the first thing he said to me was, "Now, I'm going to give you this job, but you are going to make sure that anybody who walks in the door, you're going to help. I don't care and don't want to know how they're registered, if they're Democrat, Republican, if they voted, if they didn't vote. I'm elected to represent everybody, and if somebody asks for our help, we're going to try to help them." Number one. He said, "Number two, veterans go to the top of the line. I always want you to make sure we're taking care of our veterans." So he taught me a lot. And after a while, a job came open that was in the Pikeville office. A job came open in Hazard, and where we're at today, although it was a different office, it was downtown, where the post office was, and we were there, and I was a field rep in the Hazard office, and then he started East Kentucky Pride, cleaning up the region, cleaning up sewer out of our streams, cleaning up garbage from the hillsides. So I was working on my college degree at night and on weekends, and I'd work for Hal during the day, and I finished my degree, and he asked me to move over to Pride, and I did. And then I was there for several years. And then in 2003, he started East Kentucky Pride. And I guess I did such a good job with trash that he moved me over to drugs. So he said, what I like about you and why I want you to take this job at Unite, it was when we first were creating Unite, is that Washington, D.C. and Frankfurt can't solve our problems. It's the people in the community that can solve our problems. And that just really stuck with me. And in my own family, we've had people struggle with substance abuse in pretty desperate manners, life or death situations, as most people in our region have. And it was something that I witnessed growing up in my own family. And I just thought, let's see what we can do here. So we created Unite. And then he asked me to come back into his office as district director. So I did that because whatever you do, whatever Congressman Rogers wants, right? And I really enjoyed that role. I loved, just digging into issues all the way from, the east to the western part of our district. It's a large district. He says, if you iron out the mountains in his district, we'd be bigger than Texas. And I got to know a lot of people there in that role, and really enjoyed the team that we work with. And then I left for, I guess, a year and a half, and went to Frankfurt as a consultant. And Congressman Rogers called me back and said, I need you to come back, but I need you in Washington, D.C., because we need somebody that understands the district up here to make sure we're not missing opportunities for East Kentucky. So again, whatever he wants me to do. So now I'm chief of staff. I live in Kentucky, but I travel back and forth. I'm in DC when the House is in session, and when they're not, I'm in the district. And here I am today in Hazard.
Yep.
I know that was a long answer because I'm old, Will. So that took me a while to answer that. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Hey, that means you've accomplished a lot, right? What has been your favorite thing that Congressman Rogers has done?
There's so much. Flood projects, roads, water projects, getting people water that didn't have good, clean drinking water. There's so much that's so important. But personally, to me, how he's tackled the drug abuse issue, because I know people alive today that wouldn't be if he had not done what he has done. And I don't mean one or two people, I mean a lot of people. And he took something that was really hard and is really difficult. And he told the, folks of the region, like, we've got to do something about this problem. And it's not something most members of Congress talk about with their districts, especially back in 2003. Mm-hmm. So it, being able to help educate people about treatment and options, and more than anything, when he said he was going to put his name on it and get involved, people began to have hope in this area that we could accomplish something. Mm-hmm. We still have a lot of work to do in that area, but he's the one person in Washington, D.C. that personally took on Purdue Pharma before anybody else was talking about it. And the Oxycontin Express, he took them on. And he brought Eric Holder to testify in front of his committee. And he said, I want you to figure out what's going on between Broward County, Florida, and East Kentucky and this Oxycontin Express. And he brought attention to it in a way that nobody else did. And many members of Congress were, focused on, helping pharmaceutical companies. Hal Rogers was standing up to them. And that, to me, says a lot about who he is and his heart for his people.
Yeah, I think it's very great that he's been taking on drugs for a long time now, because it's a big issue in the 5th. Can't wait to see what more comes from that. So, have you met any presidents?
I have. The first convention I went to in New York City, I met George H.W. Bush. I didn't get a picture with him, and I regret that to this day. But I met him outside his presidential box. I was just standing in the right place at the right time. And then I got to sit on a round table with George W. Bush, and I've got great pictures from that. And it was really interesting meeting him and talking with him just about the drug abuse problem, because I was with Unite at the time, and they invited me to be a part of the round table in DC and in the old executive office building across from the White House. And after it was over, I went over to shake his hand, and we were the last two. Everybody else had left that was on the round table. And I stood in line to shake his hand, and I will never forget him pointing at me and saying, "Keep on doing what you're doing because it matters." So here I am with the President of the United States, who obviously has a full plate, and he's encouraging me. I mean, it just says a lot about how much he cared about this issue as well. And I met President Obama.
President Obama.
I did. He came to the National Prescription Drug Abuse Summit that we started. And I had the opportunity to meet him. He gave a great speech that day.
Great speech.
Yeah. And, drug abuse is nonpartisan. I mean, we need, or bipartisan, I should say, we need everybody involved.
Yes. It's a big problem.
So I'll leave that there. But Bill Clinton also came to the summit and spoke. He was not president while I met him, but I met him afterwards, and he talked about Moorhead, Kentucky too. And
wow.
Yeah, well, he was there in his speech talking about the Space Science Center. So that was interesting. And I've met Vice President Vance.
Vice President Vance.
Ooh, and I've been in the room several times with Trump, but I haven't had that one-on-one with him.
You're just waiting, ain't you?
I'm going to, absolutely.
You're just waiting for your
I
chance. All right. So, in your opinion, who is your favorite president?
It's easy for me, and I'll tell you the story why. This is going to be a long podcast.
Oh, it's all right.
A long episode. Ronald Reagan.
I love Reagan.
I love Reagan, but he is my favorite because, I was a daddy's girl. I lost my dad when I was 16. And the first political memory that I have is watching the election the first time Ronald Reagan ran. And I was sitting in the floor in 1980. Wow. I was sitting in the floor, so I was 8 years old. And I was sitting in the floor of my daddy's feet, at my daddy's feet. And I said, "Who do you think's going to win?" I didn't know anything about politics. I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I was young, and I wasn't as developed as you are. And he said, "Well, Karen, I'll tell you, Ronald Reagan's going to give us America back." And at that time, I was a kid, and I was scared. The issues were going on in the world with Iran, and I was just becoming aware of some of these worldly issues. And when my dad said that, I just felt like everything was going to be okay. And at that time, we studied about communism, and we talked a lot about the dangers of communism. We don't always talk about that enough these days, but it
sadly
just gave
enough.
Sadly not enough. And it gave me a comfort for my dad to say that, and then to see President Reagan win. So that's my first political memory in my entire life. And I've always loved Reagan for a lot of reasons, but especially that.
I always love listening to Ronald Reagan give his speeches and all of his quotes. Like, there's so many I could just talk about, but he was a very great speaker. The great communicator was his nickname. So,
that's right.
You got to be good at speaking to be named the great communicator.
We can all learn from Ronald Reagan. He just had so much depth. And
he could even make his opponents laugh, like it's Walter Mondale.
Yeah, exactly. I won't hold your, how did he say it, Will? I won't hold your age, or if you don't hold my age against me, I won't hold your inexperience against you.
Yeah, something like that. He had everybody laughing that night.
He did, but he was always, the thing that you have to remember about Reagan is he was always positive about America.
Yep.
And he always painted us in the best light. And when he went to the Soviet Union, on one of his early visits there, he talked, through the communist dictators and leaders to the people of Moscow, and he painted hope for them. And that's what we have to remember.
Mr. Gorbachev
Tear down this wall.
That's
Yeah.
that actually people that worked for Reagan said that
Don't say it.
they said don't say it. It could be a very big miss.
That's right.
It could escalate things a little worse. But luckily for Reagan,
He knew.
he knew it.
He knew.
He knew that would have put the nail in the coffin.
That's right.
So there's a lot of opinions in Washington. And an opinion I always love to see is Senator John Kennedy. What would you say your
He's so fun.
What would you say your favorite John Kennedy quote is?
There's so many because I love to watch his reels.
Yeah.
Excuse
I
me.
do too.
But I would probably say he was talking about some liberals one time. And he was like, well, she's the reason they got to put directions on the back of the shampoo bottle. That is my absolute favorite. That is mine too.
I love that quote. And then one time he was at a Trump rally and saying, avocado eating, almond drinking. You can't beat him.
You cannot. And he brings humor and levity to sometimes very difficult situations, but he boils it down to where people are like, this is humorous because it's so ridiculous.
He makes politics funny and interesting.
He does. He's my favorite too.
I don't know if it's always on purpose or accident. I'm not always sure. But he does it perfectly.
I think he's very strategic. I think he knows exactly what he's doing. But I think it's how he feels and it's who he is.
So the 5th District spans 33 counties that are home to many people. There are a lot of different governments within the district. So what would you say sets Team Rogers apart from other congressional teams about how they're being able to take care of their constituents?
Well, first of all, Hal Rogers sets the standards. He lets us know exactly what he expects. And if he runs into somebody in the Cracker Barrel and we haven't returned a phone call or tried to help in some way, we will hear about it. Like he expects he said, we may not be able to give everyone the answer that they want, but we will give everyone an answer. So he sets the bar, he sets the standard, and we've all learned from him. That's just who he is. And, quite frankly, not every politician is Hal Rogers.
Nope.
So I think Hal Rogers sets Team Rogers apart.
Yep, he's a very great congressman, very great.
He is.
So what were some of the factors that made Congressman Rogers endorse Andy Barr for U.S. Senate?
Yeah, this one was an easy one for him, and I'll tell you the story. He usually doesn't get involved in primaries. He just has had a long-standing rule. I'm not going to get involved in primaries because at the end of the day, we're all Republicans, and I'll be for whoever in the fall that the people, want to run on the Republican ticket. But Andy and Hal really bonded when Andy got to Washington. And then when Andy's first wife, Carol, passed away, Hal had been through that because he lost his first wife to cancer. He immediately went to Andy and really comforted him in a way that Andy says most people couldn't because he'd been through it.
Yep.
And from that moment on, Hal and Andy they just had a special friendship. They really liked each other before, but Hal started really paying attention to Congressman Barr. And we talked 5 or 10 minutes before Andy came in the office, and he said, well, what do you think he wants to talk about? I said, well, I'm guessing the Senate race. He hasn't told me that, but I'm guessing. And he said, well, I usually stay out of primaries. I said, yeah, you do. So that's what I expected at the meeting.
Yeah.
Well, Congressman Barr comes in. Hal puts him in what we call the hot seat, right next to his desk, Capitol Dome out the window, and just says, sir, I'm thinking about running for U.S. Senate, and I would like your endorsement. And Hal goes, day one, you've got it. And I was like, excuse me? He was like, day one. And I was like, oh, okay. This is, I'm an Andy Barr fan, so this is easy for me.
Yep.
And Hal said, Andy, I've watched you work here on the Hill, and you're the hardest worker I've seen come along in a long time. You're effective. You know what you want. You're not afraid to ask for it. I have no problem giving you my endorsement. And it wasn't a slight to anybody else. It was their friendship, and it was that relationship that they forged over the years, which is why he endorsed Congressman Barr. It was easy. And then, yeah. And then, Congressman Barr later on says, well, Congressman, I really like, your help in East Kentucky. And Hal says, well, we got a great staffer. We'll share with you. And Will, you may know this lady.
I might know her.
You might know her.
I might.
So Hal says she's knows exactly what she's doing. She knows the people, and she can take a leave of absence from my team on part-time, be part-time on my team and part-time on your campaign team. And, as long as we do things the right way, we'll make sure that, that you have a secret weapon in East Kentucky, and that's Andrea Begley.
That is a secret weapon.
It is a secret weapon. It's in her blood. It's in her DNA.
Yeah.
I think she passed it down too.
Yeah, I think she did too. What is the greatest thing that you think President Trump has done in his second term?
Whew. Boy, how old are you?
13.
You ask great questions. The greatest thing that President Trump has done. It's a long list. He's ended wars and conflicts and closed the border and no tax on overtime, no tax on tips, tax cuts. It's a long list for, the first 4 years, but this term he's really been incredibly, things have moved at the speed of lightning. I am going to tell you, I think the most important thing he's done, I'm always going to fall on the side of government's number one job is to protect our people.
Yeah.
It's national security. And closing down the border has so many implications. We didn't know who was coming across that border. We know a lot of criminals were coming across that border. We know children were being trafficked across the border.
So sad.
So it implicates our national security. It implicates, it's child trafficking and the horrendous things that those kids have to go through being trafficked and sold. But it also, how many people we have a year dying of drug problems. And, I saw today that one of the mayors of Kentucky's, one of our largest cities in the state, claims that, she's fought back against the crime problem because murders are down and crime is down.
I would give credit to President Trump.
Exactly. I don't think that the numbers were down before President Trump closed the border. The numbers were up. We know that. So I think it's saving lives. It's keeping terrorists out of our country. Yeah. It's preventing children from being trafficked and sold. I think the number one thing he did was close down our border.
That was a very major thing that he done that's actually protected a lot of Americans from all of those cartels from Mexico. But in my opinion, the greatest thing I think that he's done in his second term, I would have to say has been how hard he's fought the cost of living in the last couple of months. Because in May of 2025, eggs were at $5 or $6
in gas.
But now gas is $2 in Texas. Eggs have fallen very much so. So I think that's been one of his most effective things he's done so far. And he did it in a total of 4 months.
Yeah.
Pretty fast. So as a Christian, I would love to say I love to hear this politician's pro-life story. And his House floor speeches, like the one he gave after the One Big Beautiful Bill passed.
Oh.
And he talked about how they have "In God We Trust" above the speaker's gavel.
They don't have "In Government We Trust." They have "In God We Trust."
Yep.
And that is who we are as Americans.
And that would be Speaker Mike Johnson. So I was just wondering, what are your thoughts about Speaker Johnson?
I love Speaker Johnson. I love his team. The entire leadership team right now is great. And I will tell you, during the One Big Beautiful Bill, before it passed, we were at the office for about 36, 37 hours without leaving. And I asked Hal, I said, do you want me to take you out? Because we got word that it was going to be a few hours before the vote, and there was a lot going on. And we got there about 8 or 9 o'clock a.m. And then, they said the vote would be around midnight. And then they pushed it up to 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. And I said, sir, I can take you out to your condo so you can rest, and then I'll bring you back before the vote. Because the speaker's team said, we'll stay in touch with you and let you know, and the whip's team. He refused to leave. He stayed in his office. So we were there all night. I watched the sunrise over the Capitol Dome.
Was that at least pretty?
It was incredible.
Well,
truly. It was incredible. And I was worn out. Everybody was just worn out. And right before the vote, when Speaker Johnson took the podium, was it before or after the vote he made that speech?
I think it was after. Yep.
It was just all of a sudden everybody got their second wind, because he painted the picture for why we were there doing what we were doing. And our faith is not in government. God forbid our faith be in government. Our faith is in God. And that's what this country was built upon. Yeah. And we don't talk about that enough, but that's what sets us apart from the rest of the world.
The first 13 colonies actually required their legislatures and all of their people in government to have a declaration of faith before they could even become officially in office.
That's right.
And also, before we move on, Speaker Johnson started that speech off with President Reagan said every speech should be about 20 minutes long. So I'm going to respect my colleagues' advice, and I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
After the minority leader gave a 24-hour speech. I forgot how long it was.
Well, it was, he started, and I'm trying to remember this, he started maybe at 5 or 6 a.m., and it's tradition that the minority leader can speak as long as he wants. And when he took the floor at like 4, maybe 5 a.m., I knew he would at least go through the morning talk shows. But he was trying to set a record.
Yep.
So he went, and I think it was around 3 o'clock when he stopped, if I remember correctly.
I remember watching
maybe 1 o'clock, but it was hours. And
I remember watching majority of the entire process of the big beautiful bill getting passed. I watched the majority of that.
Yeah, that's
so.
Yep, Jeffries. Mm-hmm.
So, this is my final question. Do you have any advice to the youth here in Eastern Kentucky who want to make an impact or difference in their communities?
Absolutely. If you're not interested in politics, that's okay. There's a million ways to be involved. Find out what you're passionate about. Maybe that's, going to the nursing home and doing visits. Maybe that's working at a food, volunteering at a food bank. Maybe that's volunteering at the Humane Society. Maybe that's, volunteering for your local Turning Point Club.
Yep.
And that started, exactly, and done such a great job with. There's so many ways to be involved, and I will say, find out what you're passionate about and live into that passion. And don't be afraid to ask for help and guidance, because older people, I'm old, they want to give young people opportunities, and they want to help them succeed. So find out what you're passionate about, look around and see what makes you excited. And then, don't be afraid to join in and say, I want to help. But you have to be willing to get your hands dirty. You can't just, show up. You have to be willing to do the hard stuff. I remember when I first started working for Hal in the Pikeville office, they needed somebody to clean the office. And I was like, I'm happy to clean the office. I literally clean the toilets. Now they paid me an extra $75 a month for it.
All right.
But I cleaned the office because I wanted to show that I was a team player and that there was no job too small. And you have to pay your dues and be willing to do the hard stuff. And the rest will come easier down the road.
Yep. I've definitely found out what I'm passionate about.
So tell me a little bit about that, Will. What's your plans?
Well, currently what I'm doing right now is podcasting, but I ain't seen much into what I'm going to do later on, but I'm still looking into that. still
Well, I
looking into
think
it.
it's very apparent that God has his hand on you and there's a special purpose for you. I've known that since I met you. As much as I love your mother and your father, you've always stood out to me. So I just want you to know how much you and your sister mean to me personally. And
Well, thank
your
you.
sister's an incredible young lady with a
Yep.
heart the size of Texas. So
Oh yeah, that's a big heart for sure.
you guys are really special, and I know God has his hand on both of you and has big plans for you.
Well, thank you, Karen, for coming onto the show.
Of course.
And have a great rest of your week, and God bless.
God bless.